Dashboard. We're looking at putting a dashboard together. We've been looking at how we should do this. So the way we started was looking at the mechanism, um, and essentially to go and put in a text type report um, run off of NIMS really does undermine the value of the NIMS database and the data which has been collected. So what we've looked at is within the constraints of what NIMS was designed for, which is to be able to be operated in a really unfriendly IT environment off of a desktop or um, off of excuse me, off of a laptop with very little server skills and certainly not having to run Microsoft Server and that sort of thing. Um, and wanting to maintain that, we decided, okay, well, let's keep NIMS like that rather than moving it to MySQL or to Microsoft Server. And let's rather upload the data to a MySQL server in the web. Okay. What this basically does is it makes data available to anybody who's got the usernames and passwords, and this database can be queried using business intelligence software such as Power BI or other programs such as Excel or Google Sheets. This will allow then the client to build dashboards which are tailored very much to their current business environment and to be able to produce some what we believe to be pretty powerful and informative data. Okay, so to summarize, what we're looking at is running NIMS off of the local desktop and local laptop as we've been doing, not requiring any special server management skills. Okay, all we need then is an internet connection, and that will automatically upload. Well, not automatically. What will actually happen is, or the way we envisage it, the nursery manager and so on would obviously collate the data and enter the data, make sure everything's nice and neat, and when he's ready, he will then upload that data for a prescribed time period, which would normally be a planting season. So from in Mekong's case, it'll be from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. That seems to be your season, more or less. Um, and that would be to a server which is run and managed by NIMS or by SBFAC, who's a NIMS provider, and all the management and support of the web server will be done by NIMS. Okay, this then becomes available to to the client's reporting experts, and they can take and have access to this information and develop their dashboards and in-house reports as they wish. Obviously, NIMS is quite happy to help you guys with this, and we've actually gone the whole hog and prepared what we believe a very nice starting point from a dashboard point of view. Um, but the reason that we're looking at separating it from NIMS at this stage is that quite often um, uh, dashboards need to be integrated with other information, which NIMS obviously hasn't got access to, as well as being finicky in the sense that people are often changing things for aesthetic reasons. Um, and obviously, as well, from time to time, as we've set up the data, you may want to go into more or less depth, depending on how you're using the data. So it's a very, very dynamic area, which isn't really suited for design and management by the actual software provider. Okay, it is better for the software provider to be responsible for supplying the data um, in a queryable form, which the in-house dashboard managers can then actually use to design their own reports. Okay. Having said that, that does mean that NIMS needs to supply valuable data which can be queried at various um, depths, if you like, or various levels, and to provide key information, management information to the company. Okay, so within NIMS, we had a look at it and we did a lot of brainstorming. And basically, what we did is we identified five key areas. Okay, production, obviously how much you're producing and how are you meeting targets. Your routing, are the plants actually routing? Are they doing well? And again, are they meeting the standards which you require? The survival of the plants, are they dying off, and what is killing them if so, or are the losses within acceptable levels? How much stock have you got in hand? Um, and is your nursery coping with the stock figures? And then lastly, your dispatch. Are you meeting dispatch requirements, or will you be meeting dispatch requirements? So, having looked at these five key areas in a bit more detail, some of them are a little bit more simple, some are more complex, but essentially what we've done is we've set together and we've assimilated data, and the samples of these tables are what actually now get uploaded to the server. Okay, so when we looked at production, we looked at actual versus target. We also allowed an additional switch so that you can split cuttings and seeds if you want, and the report is basically by clone and by period. So this will give you and show you how many cuttings of a certain clone you have done, or seeds for that matter, and have you met targets. Okay. We then looked at routing. We've kept actual production in here because we need that figure to be able to easily calculate the strike rates. Okay. We then looked at the actual strike, root strike. Okay. And we then included a projected root strike. Now, this projected root strike, it's important to understand how it's calculated. It's calculated using the area survival projection percentages, which the user enters into NIMS based on each clone. Okay, again, the cutting of seed switch, and then again by clone by period. Okay. The survival we split into two data sets. One is sort of formed around the adjustment type so that we can answer questions like what is our highest what fertility rates, what is causing the most fertilities, for example. These are the type of questions you can answer by that. And then the second type of report, which is your overall survival over time. Okay. Just a note at this point in time, this is not overall recovery rate. um, Actually, it is. Yeah, it depends on how you've set up this. The only one that this will not include is dispatch, but we can look at that and we can fine tune that as we get questions on that. Okay, and again, both of these are by clone by period. The only difference in the first set here is the added column of the adjustment type or the reason for the loss. Okay. And then, of course, the stock figures. We've basically done two data sets. One which is pretty comprehensive. It is age stock by area. Okay, so in each area, by clone, you'll know which plants, how many plants are too young, are ready to move, and which have been in the area too long. And then the other data set which we've decided to include, and this is a little bit of a change on NIMS, is that we've added tray capacities to area, so we can actually now have a look at actual trays in the area and just monitor your actual area utilization in terms of stock. Okay. Um, which brings us to the final category of dispatch. Again, we have given you two very separate data sets here. I'll explain that quickly. The first one is quite simple. It's just, are we meeting dispatch requirements? And this is also, we've got a few extra columns here. We've added a internal external switch basically, so you can either make it own ops or external ops. And then obviously we've added a customer column here so that you can actually query by customer, and then obviously by clone, okay? And of course, this is by period as well, okay? I didn't put that in there, but it's by period, by clone. Then we gave you another data set. Now, this is quite an interesting, this is your only truly projected data set. So what actually happens is with the information that NIMS is, or the sort of parameters which NIMS has got stored, we could actually project stock levels in the future based on current plantings. Okay. Now, these are pure projection levels, so they don't take into consideration things like dispatch and write-offs, but it does take into consideration your general survival rate, survival percentages. Okay. So this data set can be used is to have a look at, based on current production levels, are we going to meet future dispatch levels? Okay, we'll show you how it works in the actual dashboard. Okay, so those 7 or 8 or 9 data sets we have now used to create a dashboard as an example. Um, and in the next section, um, I'm going to go through how we've put this together to give an idea of the mechanics, as well as going through the each graph and showing you how the data sets can be interpreted to give you this information, which we hope to be very informative. Great. In this section, I'm looking at basically showing you how we can put together a dashboard, which we hope is informative, very readable, um, from the data sets which we provided to you. You will have a copy of this dashboard to play around with and have a look at. Um, in fact, I'll send two, one based on last year's figures, one based on this year's figures, just to see how it fits together. Well, not fits together, but just to give you different perspectives. But let's just go through this specific Excel workbook just to show you how it's put together so that you can find your way around easily enough. Essentially, you'll notice here I've colored the tabs. We got the black tabs, which is essentially the tables which have been queried and brought through from the MySQL server. Okay. For the various data sets, I have kept it very simple and very clinical. So nice and easy to find your way around. Okay. And then the blue tabs is where I've actually put together the structure underlying the dashboard. So here I've built pivot tables and I've built the chart in here so I can actually look and say, okay, if I change that, this happens, and I can actually make it look the way I want to. And then I copy and paste this chart, but they are linked, you'll see now in a minute, into the dashboard so that your viewer or in a meeting environment, you can just run through the dashboard. Sorry about the comments picking up, but obviously we've been collaborating on this. Okay. So essentially, let's take an example. Let's start off with planting. Okay, so or production actually. Okay, so as you saw in your table, it was a very simplistic one of this. As you can see, it's quite a lot of data that actually comes through from NIMS. And essentially, what it actually is, just to interpret the table, it is clone, it is the actual versus the target by clone by month. Okay. The reason we use a date here is just because it's the lowest date form level, and we can use that to do calculations with. Okay, rather than a text field. So we actually use an actual date. That just gives the guy building the dashboard a little bit more freedom. Okay. So if we now go there, so what I've done now is, in this case, I've set together a very, very simple little query, okay, based on that information. Um, and if I go to and just open the pivot table so you guys can, oopsie, sorry. Um, just to open the field just so you can see how this is put together. So essentially what I've done here, and unfortunately just before we did this, okay. So this was the what probably your dashboard looks like, with the 12 months. Okay, so we've used the data, we've brought in the actual and the target. We've used Excel pivot table abilities to create a cumulative figures. Okay, we've taken that and we've plotted on a left and right hand axis. Okay, so that we can see our month-to-month actual versus target, okay, as well as our progressive or cumulative on a separate axis, okay. So this graph really tells me a lot. It tells me that in January my actual we were way above target, but February that obviously fell, and this data set happens to be run really early in March, and you guys had just started producing in March, okay. So obviously the guy doing the dashboard on this one might decide, hang on, this doesn't make any sense, so let's just include uh, the actual months of production so that it's clearer and even more readable. I think you'll all agree that it is clear. Just a quick note, you'll notice that I haven't used any data tables. It's, based on so many clones and so many periods, etc., it is a very difficult thing to report very clearly and make it readable. So I decided against data tables, but if you guys want data tables, obviously, I mean, it's really simple. There's your data table, okay? So you could add these data tables to your dashboard very, very easily and very, very quickly, okay? Um, so I'm going to run through these quite quickly, but just to give you an idea, just to how we've put it together. So in planting, I decided to give a month-to-month comparative figure, as well as a cumulative figure, so that we can have a look at how it's going. Just before I go off of this, and at the risk of making a lot of work, you could actually include clones at this level, okay? It becomes really silly. It becomes extremely busy. Or you could use a pivot table similar to this one to actually forget about the months, which makes it more readable, and actually do clones only. So you could actually, let's take this graph, and we could actually add clones to this, okay? But as you'll see, um, if we actually expand that, it starts getting like really busy. So it's probably a good idea then to actually only show it for the month, okay, and see how your clones did there, okay. Again, these sort of things you'd have to play with, and it could get like extremely complicated, okay. But so again, this was specifically um, made to be readable while giving you really good information. So we hope we've achieved that, okay. But again, you could go and decide, okay, I want a production um, a production chart for a specific clone, and you could just build this for the clones, okay? Or you can have a look at current month's production for your clones and just have this month's production, okay? These are all very, very simple to build, using normal in-house business intelligence tools. You don't need any SQL queries. You don't need anything else now, because you've actually got that information. It would be sort of um, filtering out, if you like, um, only January information for your different clones and plotting that. Okay, it would be that simple. Okay, so it becomes really, really powerful the way we've put it together. Okay, um, right. So going through the dashboard just quickly, the what I would like to bring to your attention is just this little block. It's quite a little important little block. What it does is it tells you what date has been included. Now, you see that we've included from January to 31st of December. The reason for that is to bring all your targets into play because and your projections because when we look at a graph like a projected stock, for instance, okay, um, although we're planting in these months, okay, your stock's only going to be ready in these months, okay, and you're dispatching over there. So, for instance, coming to the stock projected, we can see that there's a small shortfall based on our current plantings from July onwards, okay, which is not serious because hopefully we'll be planting quite a lot more because we are in in advance. You've already got stock, and as you plant here, that should be pushed up. But again, being an indicative chart, but that's why the dates are important to be for the planting season. Okay, because you need to include your targets. Okay. And then the second date and time, which is very important, is it shows you when was this data uploaded. Okay, so you've got an idea that this data was uploaded on the 13th of the 3rd. So that's 10 days ago. Now remember, that's not your 13th because I've been Combi sent this data up to me a couple of weeks ago. So you'll probably find I got this data on the 7th or sometime, but this was when it was uploaded to the server. Okay. So running through this, let's have a look how I put the root strike graph together or chart. Basically, again, I used a two-axis model and I've given you a background area chart of actual production. And then on top of that, we've overlaid the actual root strike. So you can see there's a thin margin there um, where the actual root strike was a little bit lower than actual production. And then just to give you a nice easy figure to look at, we on the right hand side we've created an axis with your root strike. So your root strike is all year just under 100%, okay? Whereas your projected root strike, now projected root strike is based again on parameters which you guys input into NIMS, and this was your worst case scenario or your tolerance level. So you guys are well above your tolerance there, so nothing to worry about. Um, and then because you're growing different clones, we put in this little thing which gives you a root strike per clone. This is in Imperius base, so this will be from planting to date. And it will highlight if you've got any hassles. I see here's one of your select clones, which is only striking in 97%. On the 220 data, I think there was one which was quite low. Okay, again, if you want to exclude any clones here, you can simply go in and say, okay, well, I'm not really interested in, um, or let's say you only want to see the CP clones. You can actually filter them on the dashboard, or um, yeah, there we go. Or you can go and do it on in this case on the routing one. Yeah, yeah, these two charts do the same work. Okay. Um, so that just shows you your root strike per clone. Um, and then this one gives you your progressive recovery. Okay, so the background again here is your input. This is your actual production, and then your current output in terms of number of plants. Um, Again, this is, I think, 2020 data, if I'm not mistaken. I have mixed matched the data just to make this presentation a bit meaningful. Okay, because there's 2020 because otherwise in this current year obviously the two graphs are completely close to each other. Okay, and then of course what actually happens, this is also 2020 data, because what I try to show here is where's your biggest loss, okay? And if you look at last year's figures, you lost 5% to operational losses, okay? But you had this huge value of oversupply, which was plants which were thrown away, and then your routing was your second biggest loss, okay? Um, then we look at current stocks. Okay, so now current stocks are. I was looking at this earlier just before I started this recording, and it's actually mind-boggling, because this is very top level stock figures which I've given you here. It simply shows you in each area your age stock, okay, on a 100% stock graph, okay. Um, so that you've got an idea of what this needs to move over to the climatizing area, for instance. This is ready to go, but this is of course based on today's date, aging the stock from that was produced in March. So obviously it looks like that a bit, okay. But essentially, what it will tell you is give you your age stock in a nice, easy, visual, readable way, okay. And then remember what I told you guys is we've added this capacity thing. So at that time, your greenhouse was 83% utilized, acclimatizing 52%. And as you go through the season, those figures will change. Those will become underutilized. But anyway, you guys know all that. Um, but but now we can go and look at stocks per clone. Okay, so we could, for instance, create a new pivot table. So um, going from the dashboard with the stock, you may have other questions. You may have other ways you want to put this data together. For instance, I've just built this quickly while I was thinking. Is you may want to know where your stocks are for um, each clone. So again, let's just simplify it by taking just your CPs. Let's add K7. Okay. So essentially, what we using this now, we can see. Okay. Um, your CP101 are all still in the rooting greenhouse. Okay. They haven't gone anywhere else yet. Okay. Whereas most of your K7 are already in the holding area. Okay. Um, so this would be able to give you an analysis of where your clones are and the maturity of your clones. Okay, and for an example, at the same stage, you could turn around and change this. Okay, by saying maybe you don't want areas, but what you do want is on each one of them. Okay, how many is or what percentage? Okay, of each of these are too young. Um, okay, I've messed this up a little bit, but you get my idea. Is you could actually have this, how many are too young, ready, what's the name in each area. Unfortunately, we'd have to take out the area, what's the name on this. Okay. So again, I'm not so sure this would actually make any sense. Um, and of course, you could add data labels as well. I'm not sure if I can get percentages on there, but I can get numbers. Um, so you end up with quite an informative little graph quite quickly. Um, and then if you wanted to add this to your dashboard, it's literally once you've designed it, copy paste, put into the dashboard. Okay, so this allows you to very quickly build very informative dashboards. That's really the objective of this game. Okay. So continue down the line as I've just shown you. These are very top level stock reports. But if you want something more complicated, or not more complicated, more detailed, it's very, very easy to do with the information which NIMS is supplying you. Okay, and I suppose with dispatch, I got a little bit carried away. I see I've got like 5 different graphs here for you guys. But I think I was trying to demonstrate what I've just shown you in terms of stock. In this case, there's a little one showing you how your progression is against targets, actual versus targets on external customers versus own ops. Yeah, here's a timeline graph showing what your dispatch is in terms of actual versus target. Not a very nice little graph. I would change that, but it's just a little bit of a combo chart. Here's another 100% stacked curve showing you the percentage which you deliver to each customer, and then one showing you what percentage of deliveries you've done per clone. Okay, so and then this projected stock graph which I've shown you before. Okay, so now in Excel, this, to my knowledge, is not really publishable. But you must remember in um, software programs like Power BI and even in Google Sheets, um, it's very, very easy to share the dashboard, and you can literally publish it onto the internet, and people with access can go and have a look, as well as being able to interact. Okay, they can play with these filters and so on, using those programs. So you end up with a really very, very powerful reporting tool, depending on how much you want to spend and everything else. But this is, at this point in time, our recommendation. Have a look at it. Tell us what you think. Come back to us, and we can take it to the next level. Great. Thanks for your time, guys. Bye.